Welcome back to the Fundamentals Questions channel. Today we have the third episode of the Human Story series.
And this one is, it's a heavy one.
It really is. Honestly, looking at the stack of research we have for this deep dive, I think we need to brace ourselves a little. We're wading into some very dark, very heavy waters. We're talking about the origins of war.
It's a heavy topic for sure, but it's also one that's, absolutely necessary if we want to understand the human condition. We have this tendency to look away from the violence in our past.
Or to sanitize it. We really do. We have this incredible ability to, romanticize the deep past. I was thinking about this, the whole noble savage idea. It's such a sticky concept, right? We want to believe that before cities, before governments, before armies, humans lived in this pristine, harmonious state of nature.
Right. Plucking berries, sharing everything.
Exactly. Singing around the campfire. We treat war like it's some kind of modern infection, a side effect of civilization.
It's a comforting story. It suggests that violence isn't, innate to us, that it's something we learned. But the archaeological record is incredibly rude to that theory.
Rude is a good word for it.
The data just doesn't support the Eden myth.
The first fires of war source dismantled that for me immediately. It pointed to a skull found in Spain, the Cim de los Huesos site. We're talking 430,000 years old.
And this isn't just a skull that, fell off a cliff.
No?
No, this is distinct. The skull has two clear fractures on the forehead. The forensics on it are crystal clear. Someone, nearly 500,000 years ago, took a blunt object and struck this person twice.
Lethal force.
It's a murder, and it predates our own species, Homo sapiens.
But, okay, we have to draw a line here, right? Because a murder in a cave 400,000 years ago is brutal, but it isn't war.
That's the critical distinction.
If I get into a bar fight, that's interpersonal violence. War feels, it feels like it requires a different level of intent.
It does. Murder is impulsive, maybe a one-on-one grievance. War is coalitionary. It is organized aggression between groups. It requires a collective decision to say, we are us, they are them, and we are going to eliminate them.
So that's the mission of this deep dive then, to find that transition point. When did we stop just having squabbles and start organizing systematic slaughter?
And the scary thing is, the answer seems to be much, much earlier than we want to admit.
Right. The sources took us to Nadaruk in Kenya. This is about 10,000 years ago. And reading the site report, it's just gruesome. This wasn't a skirmish.
Nadaruk is, I would argue, the first clear scientific evidence of warfare as we define it. You have 27 individuals found near an old lagoon, and the condition of the remains tells a story of absolute domination.
This was not a fair fight.
Not at all.
The details are what get you. They describe skulls just smashed in by clubs or rocks. But then you have the projectile wounds, bodies that were, I think the term was pincushioned with arrows.
Yeah.
And then there's a pregnant woman.
That is the detail that usually stops people in their tracks. One of the victims was in the late stages of pregnancy. They found the fetal bones mixed in with her remains. And based on the positioning of her body, there's strong evidence she was bound. Her hands and knees were tied before she was killed.
See, that's the part that just dismantles the honorable warrior myth. This wasn't combat. This was an execution, a massacre.
And the kicker is, these people were hunter-gatherers.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
And that's why Nadaruk is so significant. For decades, the main theory was that war came with property, with farming.
You only fight when you have something to defend, like a city or a granary.
But the people at Nadaruk were nomadic foragers. They didn't own land, they didn't have stockpiles of grain, and yet they were wiped out in what looks like a coordinated military action.
So if there's no granary to steal, what's the motive? Why go to all that trouble?
To understand the motive, we have to look at the context. This wasn't just random cruelty, it was a kind of survival calculus. And another site, Jebel Sahaba, really helps see the pattern.
That one's even older, right? In the Nile Valley.
About 13,400 years ago. It's a cemetery site. And the numbers are just staggering. Over 60% of the bodies there show signs of trauma.
60%. That's insane.
It is. But what's really fascinating about Jebel Sahaba is the healing. A lot of these skeletons had healed wounds, peri-fractures on their arms from locking blows, arrowheads lodged in bone that had actually grown over.
So they were attacked, they survived, and then they were attacked again later.
Exactly. This wasn't one bad afternoon like at Nadaruk. This was a lifestyle. They were living in a perpetual state of violence.
So why? What was going on?
Climate. The climate data explains it. This was during the Younger Dryas period. The world was getting colder and drier fast. The Nile Valley was drying up.
So the habitable land was shrinking.
We call it the refuge effect. Imagine the desert expanding, pushing everyone toward the dwindling river. You have different groups all crammed into these shrinking oases. The population density spikes, and the food supply plummets.
It's a pressure cooker.
It's a pressure cooker. It wasn't about politics or glory. It was about calories. There isn't enough food for everyone, so everyone can't stay.
You eliminate the competition not because you hate them, but because they're eating the food your children need.
It's just war, at its very root, is an adaptation to scarcity.
That idea was really hammered home by that huge study from California, the one that covered 1,500 years.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the most comprehensive data sets we have on this. They looked at thousands of skeletons from Central California, from simple bands up to more complex chiefdoms.
And they compared trauma rates against two things, right? Politics and, what was it, net primary productivity?
Net primary productivity, or NPP. It's basically a fancy way of saying how much food the land produces, the environment's carrying capacity.
So is it bad leaders or empty stomachs?
Well, if you ask most people, they'll blame politics. Kings, chiefs, dictators. But the study showed zero correlation between political complexity and violence.
None.
None. The chiefdoms weren't any more violent than the small bands. But the correlation with NPP, with the food supply, was an almost perfect inverse line.
Wow.
When the land produced less food, violent trauma shot through the roof. When the rains were good and the acorns were plentiful, peace broke out.
That is humbling. We like to think we fight for ideologies or flags, but the bones suggest we fight when we're hungry.
It grounds it in biology. But, and this is where the story shifts, while scarcity might be the spark, the invention of agriculture poured gasoline on that fire.
The Neolithic Revolution, or 11,500 years ago, we stopped chasing food and start growing it.
Which is great, but it introduces what anthropologists call the granary trap.
I love this concept in a terrifying sort of way. The idea is that farming just, it locks you in place.
Think about it. If you're a hunter-gatherer and a stronger group attacks, you can fight or you can run. Fleeing is a totally valid strategy when everything you own is on your back.
But once you plant a field of wheat,
you can't put a harvest in your backpack. You've invested months of labor into that piece of ground. If you run, you starve.
So you have to stand and defend.
The cost of fleeing becomes infinite. And this is where we see the landscape of humanity literally change. We see the birth of fortifications.
The walls of Jericho.
Jericho is the prime example, 8,000 BCE. They built a stone wall 13 feet high and a massive stone tower 28 feet tall. The labor to build that, it tells you one thing.
They were absolutely terrified of what was outside those walls.
Yeah.
You don't build a 28-foot tower to keep out goats.
It's the architecture of fear. Farming created wealth, and that wealth made war profitable. But there's a darker asset that became a target, too. We have to talk about Talheim.
The death pit in Germany, 5,000 BCE.
It's a mass grave, 34 bodies. And the forensics, again, are incredibly specific. They were killed with adze heavy stone tools for farming.
So farmers killing other farmers with their own tools.
Mostly blows to the back of the head, suggesting they were fleeing or captured. But the demographic profile of that pit is what's really chilling.
What do you mean?
They found adult men. They found older women. They found children. But there was a glaring statistical absence of young, reproductive age women.
Which means they weren't in the pit because they were taken.
This introduces reproductive resource competition. In these early wars, the prize wasn't just the grain. It was to capture women, to integrate them into your group, to build your group's future.
It's horrifying to think of people as just another resource to be looted like a bushel of wheat.
But for all of this to happen, for a group to band together and go do this, it requires a very specific psychological mechanism. You can't just be hungry. You have to be able to cooperate.
This is that paradox you mentioned in the notes, parochial altruism. It's so weird to think that war is the ultimate act of cooperation.
It's one of the biggest ironies of our evolution. To win a battle, you need individuals willing to sacrifice their own safety for the good of the group. That is pure altruism.
Right. The selfish move is to hide in a bush and let everyone else fight. But if everyone does that, you lose.
Exactly. So we evolved to be incredibly altruistic, but only toward our group. We're wired to be brave and self-sacrificing for us, and at the same time capable of extreme violence toward them.
So the qualities we praise, heroism, loyalty, are the same things that make war possible.
They are the software that runs the war machine.
And that software seems to be hard-coded deeper than we thought. I was looking at Mungo Man, that Australian fossil, 42,000 years old.
Mungo Man is fascinating. He shows how our bodies adapted to this new reality. He had severe arthritis in his right elbow, specifically, an atlatl elbow.
I'm using a spear thrower.
He had thrown a projectile weapon so many times with such force that he literally destroyed his own joint. This wasn't just hunting. This was intensive, constant practice.
Training.
We're the only species that can kill from a distance like that.
Well, with that kind of technology.
Yeah.
But the basic software. The notes on Jane Goodall's chimps at Gombe.
The 4-year war. That was a pivotal moment. Goodall watched a single chimp community split into two. And then, over 4 years, the larger group systematically hunted down and killed every single member of the splinter group.
And they patrolled. They didn't just stumble upon them.
They moved in silence. They used stealth. They coordinated attacks on lone individuals. It looked terrifyingly like a human commando raid. It proved that coalitionary killing, the basic template of war, predates humanity.
So, we have the primate software for us versus them.
Yeah.
We have the human hardware, the walls, the granaries. And then we have the trigger, scarcity.
That's the equation. Scarcity triggers the fear. Fear activates the use versus them psychology. And our technology makes the result lethal on a mass scale.
It's a lot to process. It feels almost deterministic. You know, if the river dries up, a massacre is inevitable.
It can feel that way, but I think understanding the mechanism is the first step to breaking it. If we know that war is a response to resource anxiety, then we understand that peace isn't just about signing treaties.
You can't talk a starving person out of violence.
Precisely. If the root cause is the refuge effect and the granary trap, then the solution has to be about resource security. It's about lowering the stakes of survival.
When people feel secure in their food, their future, the biological drive to destroy the other goes dormant.
It suggests that the most effective anti-war strategy isn't military or even diplomatic. It's economic. It's making sure the Nile doesn't dry up, metaphorically speaking.
And there's a final thought you left me with that is kind of haunting.
Yeah. We look at the walls of Jericho or the atlatl elbow of Mungo Man, and we see human ingenuity. We see technology. But every one of those inventions was driven by the fear of being attacked.
Our innovation is tied to our paranoia.
It seems to be. A lot of human progress has been a side effect of trying to build a better weapon or a higher wall. So the question is, can we ever separate our technological advancement from that ancient defensive fear? Or are we still just scared primates building taller and taller towers?
That is a massive question to end on. It changes how you look at a history book.
Thank you for breaking this down with me.
Yeah.
It was dark, but incredibly illuminating.
It was a pleasure. Understanding the roots is the only way to change the fruit.
Absolutely. We will be back next time with another deep dive into the human story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.